Hail them.
Hailing frequencies open, sir.
Hailing frequencies. Open.
I don't know why I keep giving alien street food a chance. It's always such a gamble.
Captain, we're being hailed.
On screen.
Hello and welcome to another Hailing Frequencies Open podcast where we are trekking through the past and future of Star Trek. As always, I'm your host, Mike Jones, and joining me today, all she asked for from the D&I Con was a tribble. Don't ask her what she's going to do with it. It's Lanita.
Whoopity whoop. I'm hoping that the tribble I got will multiply expeditiously.
And where will you deploy that as it? Who are you going to stick that on?
It's like a bioweapon.
It is. I mean, maybe my neighbor, but you never know.
You've already heard his voice, and guess what? His trill spots go all the way down. It's Damian.
They went only just past the turtleneck, if I'm being honest. But listen, we do what we can.
They looked good. You all looked good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to get to that. We have a special guest who's not here yet, but is maybe going to pop in. So maybe I'll cut this out later if he doesn't. But hopefully we'll be joined by Steve. So don't be surprised when Steve arrives. There you go. So today, Damian and I just got back from the Galactic Diversity and Inclusion Convention in Philly. It was April 18th through the 21st, I think, in 2024. It is hosted by Gays in Space, which is a little non-for-profit organization. And basically, we wanted to, we had a great time, but we wanted to come back and kind of recap how it was. And Lanita was going to join us, but she ended up having a conflict. So she gets to hear us tell our stories about the weekend. And Steve was there. He came on Saturday.
Steve joined us for the middle day. He sure did. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, so this is, I was like, when you said
You're like,
Steve is joining.
Why is he coming? Yeah, no.
I said, I wasn't, I just said, okay, great. Like, I'm not, precious about guests on this show. I was like, oh, this will be interesting. Both of us will be asking you questions about how the hell was it?
Well, it's a good thing you're not precious because theoretically, if we did our job well and we have the follow through, we have a lineup of guests who may or may not be joining us in the future.
Which I'm very excited about.
Yes.
So I'll start at the beginning. So Gays in Space was, from what I understand, originally a after party in Vegas, organized for, gay fans. I could be I might be getting my dates mixed up, but I think they did it like maybe 3 years in Vegas. And then it grew into like, well, let's do our own convention. And they formed a little non-for-profit organization. And I think they raised money for scholarships. And their convention, this is the second year they've done it. They decided to, instead of just doing a Star Trek convention, it's a sci-fi D&I convention, diversity and inclusion. And the weekend is organized around, there are traditional panels with actors, talking about the shows and stuff, but there are also panels about centered around, gatekeeping in fandom or toxic masculinity and, in fandom, or actual, what are we doing to take steps towards getting towards the Star Trek reality, things like that. We've been talking about this on the pod for a while because we were talking about what we wanted to wear, basically.
Mm-hmm. Had a whole episode of who would we go with or go as
right
to a convention.
And I think that the best thing to do might be just to go day by day. Don't you think, Damian?
Yeah, I think chronological is kind of the best way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't know what we were getting into.
We really did not. We really did not.
I mean, when was the last time?
Extensive research? I mean, come on, Mike Jones. Like, you always have.
Well, sure, you research it, but you don't really know until you're there. Like, there's only so much that research is going to tell you, but you're there and you're in it, and it is invariably somehow,
right,
what you imagined and different from what you imagined. So
fair enough.
Well, it was just the second year of it. So even searching online, I found some videos of actors doing little clips promoting it, like, "Hey, I'm going to be at this blah blah blah, see you there." Um, but I didn't find any like, vlogs of you can watch all of the Star Trek Las Vegas convention on YouTube, basically, with people just filming and vlogging. But that didn't happen. So, um, and it's organized by Gays in Space. So is it really the gay Star Trek convention? Um, and having been to a number of gay events in my life, I know that there are a couple different kinds. There's the advocacy events,
Sure.
and then there's orgies. So, and sometimes they overlap.
Opposed, then they meet.
Yeah, this
wasn't that.
This was not the orgy vibe was really not there.
It was not there. You're right.
No, I did not sense that. And it's funny because like every time I feel bad talking about him when he's like not yet arrived. But if I shared like a picture of our looks, the text response from Steve was, "You're gonna get so much nerd butt." Right? And I'm kind of like, I was like, I don't really know how to explain like that. I'm looking around and this is not the vibe. This is not where we all seem to be, where we all seem to be headed. And then he arrived and was like, I was sort of expecting like a nerd Fire Island. No, it was not that.
No. That's the thing. It felt like just a normal, well, not just, but it felt like a normal convention in terms of looking around. There were a lot of costumes, a lot of cosplay, yes. More than I was expecting, honestly. And I would say maybe more gender fluid people than you would see at a normal Star Trek convention.
I felt like there was a strong trans representation at this event. Yes.
It felt a little bit like being on the campus of a liberal arts college that, you know what I mean? Like
yes.
There was there were girls with blue hair,
Yes.
And I felt really at home there. I felt really safe, and
yes,
you could just walk up to people and start talking, and people would.
Yes, everybody. I can't remember the last time I was in a space where people were so receptive and just approachable and the analogy that I used. I mean, we're all the same age. Do you all remember the Blind Melon No Rain video? Absolutely. With the little bumblebee dancer girl, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Where most of the video, people are really mean to her, and they're like, "Go away! I hate bumblebee girls. Don't talk to me." Right? And then at the end, she like wanders into this field, and then all of a sudden, there's just like she's in the sea of other bumblebee dancers. It felt, at its best, it felt a little bit like that. You're like, oh, this is like. There's nobody that was like quite like me, but that's like nobody. It didn't matter. Like everybody was.
Yeah.
Themselves in the best way, and wanted to like and accept everyone for being themselves. It was like, oh, that's the kind of Pike you're going to be. This is the Pike I'm going to be. Let's talk about how we differ and why we chose these things. Oh, right. You're Trill, so am I. Which version of Trill are you? Like, that's super cool.
We had some of those moments for sure. Like, oh, did you do your own spots? Yeah,
Right. Oh, how did you do your spots? Right, yeah.
Yes.
Do your spots go all the way down? We saw at least one who, well, I don't know if they did the middle, but like they were wearing shorts and they had spots all the way down their legs too. And that
was definitely a child. That was definitely a child who did that. Like at least a teenager, like a young looking teenager.
A young, yeah. Not like a toddler, but yeah, it was like a teenager.
A child to us old people. Yeah.
A child to us old people.
Correct. When we say child, we mean anyone under 30.
Right.
Though one of the sort of running themes of this convention, like, and I say that like it created this space that I was so happy to be in, and so like the vibe was there. The like execution was like kind of janky on a lot of things.
Yeah.
And but when it came down to it, like it didn't actually matter. Like every time something like didn't seem to go right, like it everybody was just happy to be in that space together. It was but like for instance, we arrive at the hotel on Thursday and we'll check into the hotel. You remember the first thing that happens when we get into the elevator? Do you remember this? elevator door opens, and a Klingon woman walks out in
Yes.
full costume. I'm like, girl, it is the night before. We just landed. I'm in my travel clothes. Like,
Right.
you're already kapla, like coming out of the elevator. I'm like,
She
okay,
quaplawed
here
at
we are.
us. It was great.
Mama showed up on Wednesday. She said Thursday
Right.
is
Yes.
start. I'm not arriving on Thursday. Start Thursday.
Here's the thing. So there was one event that night that was a ticketed event. It was like a VIP welcome party thing. I assumed we were going to see her. She wasn't there. I'm not sure what she was dressed up for.
No. Also, hardly anyone went to the welcome event. Plenty of people there, right?
Yeah.
The welcome event was a large sum of money that we each paid. And
I mean, you can look
go
online and see the prices. It was $100.
It was $100. Okay, yes.
Okay.
And
Not
it was
cheap, not chump change.
Not cheap.
No, and a cash bar.
Yeah, I thought the
So what
$100
did your
included
$100 get
a
you?
buffet food.
A buffet.
There was food.
It was food.
Was it
It
good
was
food?
It actually was.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay.
I mean, it was.
Okay,
It was
Mike Jones says no.
Of the provided food at the event, it was the best food there. And at no point was there anyone who scanned our barcode to verify that we could have just walked in.
You could have just walked in.
We could have just walked in.
Oh yeah, we're here for that.
And this proved to be the case for, I am fairly certain, everything that we paid extra for could have just walked in. And in fact, I'm fairly convinced the convention we could have just walked in.
Probably. Yeah.
But here's the thing. You're helping for the convention to continue next year. They had to pay somebody. So
that's true. That's a good way to think about it.
They may have been a little in lax in security, but you paid for something. You paid for the hosts or part of the room block fee. Who knows?
Yeah.
What did they feed you is my question.
So at the VIP thing, VIP sounds so stupid. If you pay $100, you're a VIP. So there was a buffet of there was really good mac and cheese.
Yes.
Okay.
And then like hummus and what else was there?
No pigs in a blanket?
That was about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was not. I'm trying to think if there was any like meat.
Was there any fruit? Cheese?
There was cheese.
There was cheese. Yeah, there was cheese. There was cheese cubes and crackers. I mean, it was not the Golden Corral. You know what I mean? It was
Love
like
Golden Corral.
there was
Parker House rolls, fresh chicken out the oven, out the fryer, mashed potatoes and gravy. Num, num,
and the drinks were good, but they were not cheap. I mean, we're at this gay bar in Philly. You know what I mean?
So Bradley's. What's it called? Something Bradley's.
Frankie Bradley's.
Frankie Bradley's, and it has clearly been there for 200 years.
Yeah, it used to be two bars, and then it combined or something. They had multiple rooms. It was a cool space. Very cool.
It was a very cool space.
Wait.
Have you been there?
So, well, I've partied a lot in Philly. Listen, when you go to school, I sure have. I literally, when I turned 21, I went with my parents to Philly, and we stayed in like old Philly, went out to dinner, and then I went with them to the club.
They had like a drag show happening, or they were setting up for one in another room.
Yeah. And there was also a clothing optional party happening above us.
Yes,
after,
on the roof.
You didn't go to
or
that?
in the upstairs.
No, I wasn't groomed for it.
He hadn't finished his speech. So what did we wear that day? I wore my Trekkie bowling shirt that my friend Paula made for me. Hi, Paula. She made that years ago, and I've never really had anywhere to wear it. And I finally got to wear it.
That's so awesome.
I definitely wore our Hailing Frequencies Open t-shirt with a blazer, which is funny because when the blazer is on, all you can see is Aaron.
Like cartoon Aaron.
It's just an Aaron shirt. We love you, Aaron.
Love you.
You're there in spirit and t-shirt.
But I'm glad that we went to that because we met the Roddenberrys, which I feel like we got to put a pin in and come back when we get to Saturday. The Roddenberrys are I mean, I don't know if you can even assign a genre, but they're a large band with many instruments, including a horn section that is very Star Trek themed, obviously, given the name of it.
Right.
Love it.
And they come with 2 burlesque dancers, a boy and a girl, that do various Star Trek burlesque looks. So they were all like, we just like ended up standing at the bar with Beth, the lead singer, who of course was majorly transformed by the time we saw her 2 nights later performing.
Oh, she was
The
amazing.
Roddenberrys were awesome. We like, that's the get that we're after. They've not answered us. They've retweeted us, but they've not answered us. We'd love to have the Roddenberrys on.
I think some of them worked at Frankie Bradley's, so I think that there was a connection there.
I couldn't tell what all, but they felt like they were hosting the party there. Like they were
Yes.
like welcoming all the people. They were lovely. They were so nice. All of them were so nice. And then of course, also at that bar, we met Colonel Bree Fram.
Yes.
So
I had no idea who she was. She walks up next to me and we start chatting, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I have a podcast. It's about queer leadership." And I was like, "Oh, we have a podcast. It's, we were talking about that." And then I like Googled her.
Well,
super impressive human being.
She is the highest ranking out trans person in the entire US military. But like she was in her like
while working, while serving.
Yeah. She was, and she was in civilian garb. So there was no like, and like, all right, so when you're in these like sci-fi spaces, like you meet these people who are like, "My name is Mike Jones. I'm the captain of the USS Cortisone." And you're like, God. "Okay, Mike Jones, you're the leader of a club. The ship is made up. It's not really a ship." Okay. Like I get it. There's no there's no USS Cortisone. Right?
I just have to interject. That makes me think of there was a guy in an elevator, and the elevators were really finicky, and he was frustrated because we couldn't get it to like enter his floor, and he was wearing a captain's uniform, and he was like, "Oh, I have to be somewhere." And I really wanted to be like, "Sir, you bought those pips. You did not earn them.
Yes.
Like you have
There's
no
a
rank
lot of that
in this elevator."
Right. And so she and Mike are talking about how the deltas are similar between the Starfleet Delta and the Space Force Delta. And then she gets out her Space Force Delta and shows us. And I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And she's like, "That's from the Space Force." And I'm like, "Oh, what's that?" Like,
which she was happy you asked, because then she got to like talk about
Mike,
her.
I was like, I felt like
how did Damian ask? Was Damian like, "What the fuck is that?" Like Space Force? Okay, no, Space Force.
He was nice. I think maybe he thought it was a nerd fan club in Oklahoma or something. But
so that
it isn't. It's a branch of the military.
Right. So I was like, okay, like that's really didn't like it still didn't click for me, because I was like we're in this like sci-fi space, like right. All right, well that's all right. And then we get to the convention the next day, and there she is in full dress uniform, and like you could, and there with other members of the Space Force, they were at this convention recruiting queer Trekkies.
Yeah, the Air Force had a table and the Space Force had a table,
and you could have knocked me over. Like I did not like. I had just, it was like, I was so quickly like rewriting the previous evening, and like, I was like, all right, I am a huge asshole right now.
I mean, what I see in my head is her walking in Julia Roberts style. Big mistake. Huge. Walking back into that dress shop where that girl tried to sell her.
Oh, right.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
No,
I'm there.
No, in all honesty, she didn't care one bit about anything that I.
No, I know, but it just is so funny to me, because I can see you being like, "Okay, Space Force," and
yeah,
like, well, actually,
all right, Space Force.
You're like, yeah, and I'm the Queen of England.
Do you know Tawny Newsome?
Can we get her?
Can you get her on the podcast for her?
Mike Jones. But funnily enough, she is a part of a group called Sparta, which is for trans military members.
Oh.
So the plus one knows her.
Are you serious?
Absolutely.
Okay, well,
don't worry.
Colonel Fram is going to be on the pod.
Yes.
I've already pre-ordered her book so that I can have it read before she's on. Like, we're super excited about her.
That was
and
what I said.
subscribed to her podcast about it's called Forged in Fire, and it's about queer leadership.
Well, we're gonna be doing that right now.
Right. So we're gonna need to like read a book and do a little podcast listening to be prepared for that.
Right.
If and when that ever comes to pass.
Right.
But she
it's
was
gonna come to
lovely
pass.
and friendly and recognized us the next day, even when she was like in fancy clothes. And
I love it in fancy
Well,
clothes.
so were we.
oh, we know we were also in our uniforms.
Yeah, so we can move on to Friday. We wore our lower decks reds to look like our avatars from the podcast.
You guys are great. It was so
Um,
good.
so much fun.
So much fun.
And we got those from the same place. What was it? It's like
Koser Mart.
Koser Mart, which is I mean, it's shipped from China, and so they clearly do not have any kind of copyright. Because I'm pretty sure it was called like Red Space Captain,
Yeah. I looked it up as
costume or
like
something.
space uniform.
Oh, see, no, they seem to have the copyright. Like if
Do
you
you
go to their
think?
website, I think they do because they have all of the little, because I think even the deltas are copyrighted, all of the
Yeah.
little sort of micro printing like that you see in the newer uniforms.
Yeah.
And my like one of the uniforms that I bought was definitely, I mean, it was called a lower decks uniform when I got it for
Oh, they
sure.
called it. Oh, okay. Well, maybe
Yeah.
I also was looking at several different places to order the uniform, so maybe I'm getting it mixed up with another one. But
Well, and it's funny because if you order a uniform off of eBay, it doesn't say like Cozumar is on the tag. So I think that they seem to have the, I don't know this, but I think they
corner on
have
the
the
market.
copyright. Yeah.
Well,
I don't
good.
know this, but I'm just going to tell you this
Yeah.
is what it is. Okay.
And
Yes.
then Damian, what did you wear on Friday?
I wore my lower decks cartoon avatar as well, with
Yes.
my single ensign pip to match my cartoon self.
And I bought my 4 pips. I was a fake captain.
Yes, yes.
No,
He went as Captain Carol Friedman.
I went as Captain.
I love it.
Um,
God.
amazing.
What did you, so were there so like on Thursday was the welcome event. On Friday is where programming started. So
Yeah.
Yes.
what things or what lectures, talks did you go to on Friday?
Okay. Well,
Well,
first
yeah.
things first.
You went to
There's like
breakfast.
the registration table,
Okay.
right?
Oh, yeah.
And because Damien wants me to tell the story, I can
Yes,
see
I
it in
do.
his
I
face.
definitely
It's
do.
nice.
I definitely
So
do. We
we
handle
walk up
this
to
is
the
how Mike and Damian handle the same situation very differently.
we walk up
And
to the
Mike won.
registration table. He was in front of me, and it's they used Eventbrite for the ticketing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had our Eventbrite app pulled up with the QR code, and the guy had a little iPhone and he scanned it, and he said, "Oh, you have the 3-day pass." So he got the little lanyard for the 3-day pass and handed it to us. And he said, "Are you with the first contact group that registered for the t-shirts?" And Damien said,
No.
"No,
No.
I don't know what that is." I saw this interaction. So then when I got in line, it was my turn. He was like, "Oh, did you register for the t-shirt?" And I was like, "Yes." It's like, "What size? 2XL, please, and thank you."
That's right, Mike Jones. Yes, and
To be honest, I
Yes,
think I
and.
did. I remember getting the email about a free t-shirt, and if I get an email about a free t-shirt, like I'm gonna stop whatever I'm doing and fill it out because I love me some swag. So I feel like I
Exactly.
wasn't lying, but I didn't really remember. And there was no list. There was no way of knowing. Anybody could have said.
Again, just could have walked in.
Just could have walked in.
Well, they at least scanned your well, they scanned something. They
scanned something and they gave us lanyards, which I mean, it was a little honor system. I think, especially with the cosplay, a lot of people weren't wearing the lanyards,
Yeah.
but like there was nobody checking them at doors or anything like that, you know.
Right.
It was a small
It was like,
event.
if you're
How many
here,
people do you
you
think
want to
were
be
there?
here.
I don't know, but I was actually talking about this the other day with someone else because I remember when I was a little kid going to like my last convention prior to this, I was 12. Okay. I'm a little older.
So 10 years ago.
Yeah, 10 years ago. But it, it was like I think that there was like a giant. I mean, it was my memory of those was a giant ballroom full of people, so it was like thousands of people and one celebrity. To me, this was hundreds of people.
It was the 90s, man.
Right. I use celebrity very loosely, by the way, but I'm going to say there were hundreds of people at this convention and 20 celebrities.
Yeah.
It was impressive that it was such a small convention, but that the Star Trek talent actors
right
who or featured guests, that there were so many of them, that so many people showed up for this. It was very that was a very impressive aspect of it.
Yeah. So that day there was a welcome panel was the first thing. And there a lot of the guests were there. Some of the actors and special guests were there for that. Colonel Briefram was on stage and in the welcome thing, and that's
was
when
definitely
I was
one
like,
of the featured yeah.
So BFD, she's a big fucking deal. Then the next thing we went to was moving towards space reality, and she was moderating that, and they had Greg Hogden and Deborah Sass, who they're both rocket scientists. It's like come on, it's not rocket science.
I think I questioned the name of the woman's name was Adina.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Moderators Colonel Briefram and Adina So maybe Deborah actually didn't show. Actually,
I actually approached, because I remember I approached her afterwards to compliment her. Like, we really enjoyed your panel, and she's like, "Oh, really?" And I was like, "Yeah, I felt like we like actually really learned something." And she's like, "All right, what did you learn?" And I was like, I don't know. I was just trying to give you a compliment. I was hoping that I could do it and walk away.
If memory serves, she also is an author and had some books.
She's a sci-fi writer
there.
also.
Yeah. So that was fascinating. They talked. The Greg guy talked a lot about like space junk and how many satellites are in the air right now, and how they have to have a plan to get rid of them. Like they can either basically let them burn up as they fall, or they can push them into higher orbit into so that they're it's fascinating.
So talking about guiding them to land in the Pacific as well.
Yeah, they can land.
Yeah, but they don't get them. They just let them fall to the bottom of the ocean and crush life down there. Or let's push them out further into space and let's pollute the universe. It's amazing. It's one thing I thought about when it came to Star Trek. Like, how do we deal with refuse? Are we burning it? What happens to that noxious gas? All of the things that are out there. How did they get out there?
One of the things that, or one of the possible solutions for some of them, he said some of the satellites are perfectly functional. They're just out of fuel. So they're looking at just sending up another satellite or rocket to just connect to it and refuel it. And they're doing that with some of them.
Solar powered. The sun is always fucking up there.
That's probably true. Yeah. The International Space Station, I guess, is due to be retired at some point. And it could be repurposed as something, maybe as
Elon Musk is going to buy it and
attraction.
Yep, Elon Musk is going to buy it and turn it into his personal residence in space, and then he's going to charge other people with a lot of money to come visit him and figure out how to grow potatoes from his poop, a la Matt Damon in The Martian.
Or it'll end up in the Pacific. Anyway, so that panel was fascinating and not something that I would have expected at a Star Trek convention.
No.
Why?
I don't know. I feel like in the panels I've gone to in the past are always I've only been to a few conventions and it's been a long time, but it's Patrick Stewart with the microphone telling the same stories he's told over and over, taking questions from the audience. You know what I mean?
Right. It's also like, what would your character do if this happened? A lot of like, I think that's what would be typical. And this was more, they were definitely guided towards talking about queer issues, about diversity issues. Some people went very political later days, or about like, because we went to the Picard panel, the Star Trek Picard panel, which was Michelle Hurd, who was like as big a personality, as charismatic as you would have anticipated.
She's a live wire.
Yes. Jin Meili, who was probably one of the cooler people that we met over the course of the weekend, who played Ensign Esmar.
So cool. The comms officer.
And they were very, so basically they do this like panel in front of like it's a large ballroom, and in the back of the ballroom they have these little clusters of like semicircular seats for breakout groups. So the idea, and the people who were at the Picard panel, it couldn't have been more than like, I don't know, like 70 people, 50 people, and then because
75.
because our group, how many people would you say were in our breakout group? Like 20?
Like 20 maybe.
Yeah.
So it was Michelle Hurd, Jen Malley, and Stephanie Chakowski. Was that it?
Yeah, I think
So
so.
there were 3 breakout groups.
Yes.
Basically, all 3 of them were on stage for the first 20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And with a moderator, Dan Devey. And then they broke out into groups. And this was the weird one, though. They gave us a topic to discuss, which
Yeah.
didn't happen in the other ones. It was almost
It felt like
you
group
know,
therapy.
it felt, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Basically, we were to talk about how we've felt othered within fandom.
Right.
Which was fascinating. And when we were with Michelle Hurd, she talked a lot about the work that she's done with the unions for
The Crown Project.
The Crown Project,
Yeah.
about hair,
about having people who actually can do black and brown hair and
Yeah.
not just putting wigs on people because you don't know
Yes.
what to do, because in cosmetology school they don't teach you that because whiteness is center. Please don't make me, I'm sorry,
Right.
soapbox
Yeah,
rant.
no, and
Absolutely.
you know,
Exactly.
and that there's only 2 states where, in order to get a is it cosmetology and hair license, that you have to be licensed to, you have to be trained in other ethnicities, right? So like
And
you
what
can
2
just
states are those?
New York, and
Of
you'll never
course.
guess, Louisiana.
But that makes sense. Louisiana has a very dense black and brown population.
Yeah.
But New York, you have to, like, it's wild.
Mhm.
It's wild. And one of the actors from NCIS New Orleans, I can't remember the character's name, but she was like the only brown girl on there for a long time. I was like, why is her hair so bad? Like, it just, like, it was pulled, but it was bad. And she talked about how, they didn't realize, because they're taping in Louisiana, it is hot and humid. And so they didn't know how to do her hair. So they would pull it back and straighten it, but then it would puff. So then they put a wig on, and the wig was terrible because they didn't want her to wear her naturally curly hair, because they didn't think that it was professional looking for
That's
the
the
hair
exact same thing that Michelle Hurd said.
out of her.
Yep, that happened to her. Yeah.
And she says
And
that
her
she
hair
can
is
no longer,
stunning.
and that her hair was so damaged from it that she can no longer grow past a certain length.
Correct.
Yeah.
She is. It literally has damaged her. It's a whole thing. But I'm glad that was talked about.
No, it was a really
That's awesome.
I gotta say though, I the whole, like, the time talking about like feeling othered, right? I was like, I think I'm actually feeling othered right now on account of my privilege of my queer experience. Do you know, like, as like a cis white gay male who lives in New York City, who works in theater, and I look around at some of the experiences that all these people are talking about, and I was like, oh, I had like a tortured year as a teenager. But I'm looking around, I'm like, I have as and whatever challenges I face as a gay man or whatever in the world, I'm like, it
pales in comparison to like the stories that you're hearing. You're like, okay, I'm good. That was
like, my life is easy.
But it's good to recognize that, because some people would not, and then center themselves, like they would take that tortured year and make it seem like it was an eternity, when someone's literally talking about, oh yeah, my hair only grows to my shoulder because they destroyed it whilst doing it in my profession.
Yeah. It was definitely like a check your privilege moment. It was humbling and eye-opening. And just fucking cool. You know what I mean? It was just cool to one-on-one talk to these people. And, here's the thing. We all work in theater. We're a little bit actor immune. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, there are a few actor celebrities that I would really be nervous talking to. But I say that, but here, I don't know. I just felt like, oh God, they're real people. You know what I mean? And it's like, of course they are. But
no, it humanized them. You're like, it takes them off the stage, off the screen, and puts them. You're like, oh, that's right. You're like a person,
right?
And yes, I love your character, but like, oh, hi.
Well, in the breakout group with Jin Meili, there were some like moments of like because the conversation was like we had this like topic imposed on us, right? I could just feel their awkwardness in terms of like as there was like moments of like silence, and there was like you could tell there was a few more minutes left and there were no questions. And so um uh I was like, I feel like I need to jump in and say something, like, right? So I kind of like come in with a question at the exact same time as the guy across from me comes in with like a very meaningful speech about essentially like intersectionality of being Black and gay. And he went on and on, and it was great. Like it was far. I literally only jumped in to like end the
Break the
silence,
silence.
Right.
right? And then they were like, "Oh, I'm so sorry you didn't get to ask your question. What was your question?" And I was like, "Oh, that's no big deal." But the entire rest of the time, they were like, "Remind me your name. I remember you," and made like a real effort to connect. So it was just really nice.
Yeah.
Beaming in from somewhere I don't know.
We should add a sound effect.
Yeah. Boop-a-dee-boop-boop.
We have a special guest joining us. Everyone gets a fun intro now. You listen to the pod. So his last prostate exam was from a Cation doctor, and he loved every minute of it. It's friend of the pod, Steve.
I need a minute.
He's like, I can't talk yet.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Hi. Steve was with us the entirety of Saturday. And
We're about to get into Saturday.
and we're just getting to Saturday. Your timing couldn't be better.
Perfect
Amazing.
timing.
So actually was the gala Friday night?
The gala was Friday night.
Okay, so we should cover that too.
Yes.
So we had Thursday into the place, check-in, welcome, VIP party, which wasn't really VIP, but you had a good time.
No.
Thursday, registration. Damian didn't get a shirt because he told the truth. Mike Jones got a shirt because he's telling the truth he remembers. Then there was some Space Force. You learned about astrophysicists and what they do up there. And then you had a breakout room to talk about your feelings, and you learned things about intersectionality and how hard it is for people that don't look like you in this world. And then
so good.
What happened after that?
We should put it in the notes so you can really just tune in at whatever this minute marker is to get the entire beginning part. Right. And Steve, by the way, is like, "Thank you, I was there."
But he wasn't there on Friday. Oh, see? I'm the audience one.
So next was the DS9 panel.
Oh, that's right. We did.
And that was Terry Farrell and J.G. Hertzler and Penny Johnson-Gerald and Robert O'Reilly, and Randy James, who it took me a minute to. There were two. I didn't recognize him. We had to Google him.
Okay.
He was
Lieutenant Jones. He was basically an extra that was recurring and occasionally had lines. Nice guy.
I think he maybe had like a line at one time. Like there was this population of people that were there that were like, the other one was Tracy Coco, who I promise you recognize from Next Generation. Yeah. She is, I mean, I don't know. I mean, she's identified.
She was often on the bridge.
She was often on the bridge. She's like, sort of like slim and short with like black spiky hair, and I promise have seen her in a gazillion Star Trek episodes that you don't realize.
Really?
And at this DS9 panel, also Shannon Cochran, who was
I just looked her up.
Yeah, Martok's wife in one episode.
Yes.
Whose wife?
Shannon Cochran, General Martok's wife. And I mean, she
was the mother-in-law that Jedzia had to get her approval in order for.
Yeah. Yes. She was great. And you're like, all these people have like such some of them have like a tenuous, like that they worked on the show like once or twice, really. I mean, right.
And but
more than me.
But work that convention circuit, like, sell your headshots. Your 8x10 glossies. That panel was similar to the Picard cast panel in that we broke out into breakout groups, but Sadly,
That was the worst.
so there were 4 areas for breakout groups, and there were enough of
Okay.
them they could have done 4, but they paired up in ways that we were sitting there and we realized that the other 3 breakout groups had like someone leading them, like a one of the actors, and we didn't have anybody. And they came up to us and they were like, "Okay, so just find places in the other groups because this one's not really a group." And we're like, "Oh." So then we joined a group and there was no good seats and we were sitting in like the middle and we couldn't hear anything that whole
Literally
panel.
not. Literally not.
So that one was kind of a waste.
Okay, so that was a bust. Boo, DS9. That's
Boo.
sad because that's Damian's favorite. I would have thought that,
I know.
you'd have gotten the most out of it.
Yeah.
Well, we did tell Terry Farrell that she should go pee.
Yeah, because I was
What?
peeing like every 10 minutes, and she
Yes,
walks in with
bladder
this
of a woman.
giant tea, right? And I was like, I don't know how she's gonna get through all this with that big old tea. And of course she couldn't. She had to run a pee. So
She couldn't. She was like, she was answering a question and she said, "Sorry, I'm distracted. Can you repeat that? I really have to pee." And we were all like, "Go pee. Like what, like be a human being. It's fine. You're not disappointing us." I did ask Penny Johnson Gerald if we're getting another season of the Orville, because of course she's a main cast member on that. And because it hasn't been announced that it's being canceled. Her answer was
I know who she is.
follow Seth MacFarlane
Follow Seth
on
MacFarlane.
socials
Yep.
and
That's good.
have your voice heard. That's basically what she said. So
Yeah,
I'm like, that's a
Cassie
non-answer.
Yates.
Oh yeah, she played Cassie Yates.
That's what you need to do, Mike Jones. I don't know these people's real names. I'd have to go over here and Google, be like, oh yeah, I know that person.
Right.
The other funny thing about Friday that I realized was that I think was like emblematic of how this convention was, is that they had Trekkie Feud, right? And it was like
Yeah.
they did a really good job of having questions. They surveyed 100 people. It's about to get started. And then someone gets on the mic and they're like, "Excuse me, does anyone have any AA batteries?" And like there's like everybody looks around. No, we didn't. I'm sorry, I'd bring batteries.
I mean, some fan
And
didn't
they're like, "Well, we
put
need them.
a
One of our
phaser into their
buzzers."
feed.
What's that?
Yeah, I'm sure some fan had like a prop phaser on them that they could have popped it out of.
Well, that's
Nope.
true. Probably.
Literally nobody had, and so they're like, "Well, we need them for the buzzer," and the entire show was on hold for 20 minutes, while they like try to figure out other ways to buzz in, while they literally it was
You just pick a sound.
you
You
just
just pick a sound.
they needed the buzzer, and it was like
Nerds.
20 minutes later the battery showed up. But it was like
Weren't
you're
you
like,
in a hotel? Couldn't you
There's
go
like
to
a
the front
buzzer
Yes.
desk?
app
I
on your
know.
phone.
Yeah, there are buzzers on
Well,
your
and-
phone. They're
but
literally.
That's true. You're right. They could have done an app. Bonnie Gordon, who's the voice of the computer in Prodigy and hilarious, she was like, "I can be the buzzer. I'll make the sound."
That's
but
awesome.
no, there was a no go until, and we
Very
sat there.
serious.
But it was like, it was also funny.
Yeah.
And we were all just kind of just like happy to be there, and nobody cared. So it was like all fine. But you're like,
Right.
really, the entire show is on hold for 2 AA batteries, and they refuse to like make a change of plans. Like,
Right.
okay, all right.
Yeah. There were, I mean, I have to say I had to take the production side of my brain and be like, you know what, Mike, chill out. Because
here
there
to
were
have fun.
moments
It's the
where,
worst.
I'm here to have fun. I need to stop thinking about this. Like, for example, at the gala thing, there was a slideshow they were doing, and the laptop was sitting on a table, and the cord to the laptop was so taut over to a power strip, and like all these people were stepping over it. I was like, oh my God, just tape that down. Like,
Can somebody please cord management? Who's got gaffer's tape? Move the laptop over.
We're in the middle of a panel and we hear like dunk dunk, testing, hello, dunk dunk, and it was someone in the other room using a microphone that was on the wrong frequency.
Yeah, none of the microphones worked. Like everyone was constantly getting a dead microphone. It was like musical microphones the entire time.
Oh, I love it.
It was like an audio guy's worst nightmare. It was like, yeah. And for the gala, I did put on stenciled my spots, and I got my little Gen Z hair
Yes.
clip and my blue DS9 uniform, and did a little cosplay. And at the hotel bar, I had we shared a hotel with a girls volleyball tournament. Hundreds of teenage girls there all at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And three of them approached me and asked to take a picture, which I think that they were, of course, making fun of me. But they were
I
asking so
think
nicely,
so.
I had to say yes.
Well,
So.
I think they were like, no one's gonna believe this. This is
Mhm.
ridiculous. Like, we
Mhm.
need to show our friends. I don't think that they were like jealous of you, but I do. I don't think they were making fun of you.
It was not
don't-
aspirational.
It was. Yes, it was. They said, I wish that they knew who you were, and they were like, oh my God, I wish I could be this nerdy, but I can't. So I'm gonna take this home and be like, one day I can be this brave too.
Oh, there you
Also,
go.
quick question. Did you all actually play Trek Feud, or did you just watch the game?
just
Well,
watched.
you just watch, because there's like 10 people that play, right? And
Yeah.
it was clearly like, and the people who they picked, like the team leaders were Robin Curtis, who played Savick on
In
Star
Star
Trek
Trek
3,
3
and
and
Bonnie Gordon, who is the voice of the computer on Prodigy, and also she's like just a convention personality, really. I mean,
Okay,
she's
and
like
then
everywhere.
and then there were convention goers playing with them.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
how they
like
were
prominent
selected.
fans. I think they were like fans that knew Dan Devey. I mean,
Yeah, I think it was like friends
Yeah.
of Dan TV, the organizer.
Boo.
Yeah.
Tomato,
But maybe I'm
tomato.
wrong. And he was the host,
You
Dan.
all would have crushed it.
Yeah. I think we were sitting there like saying things, you know.
Right.
But
And it was the number one answer on the board.
of course.
Um,
It was also, they had done Trek Feud before with, like, I guess they wrote these questions a couple years ago. They were using the same questions still. So they were like, did you see this last year? Well, if you did, forget about it, because pretend these are new questions. Like,
right.
like,
And also it was like,
dude.
it didn't include like, it was like an old enough that like some of the new Trek wasn't involved in it. So you're like,
yeah.
And then one of the answers was Elnor, and we're like, wait, we thought this was pre-Elnor. Like, we would have said that. Like, well, it was like characters who died and came back, you know, and you're like, oh, God.
I was like,
He did
Shax.
Every time. Okay. So Friday, so that's Friday. Three events.
Let's talk one more thing about the gala, just so I can complain about the food.
Okay.
Oh, the carving station.
The gala was this other ticketed event.
Okay.
It was also $100.
Okay.
And it was supposed to be not black tie, but like dress up or
Fancy.
cosplay.
So you're supposed to be in your dress uniform.
In your dress uniform, sure.
Because you were meeting colonels or admirals.
Right.
Go ahead.
So like I had this one shirt that it's a Star Trek shirt, but like I don't know where Tim found the shirt, but it's black with a little bit of texture, and it has like spots all over it because it's like space. And on the back it says in little letters like Final Frontier. So I wore that with a bow tie that had like the Delta shields on it.
That was a very cute. I saw that picture. That was very cute.
Thank you.
Very cute.
So yeah, we get in line for the food. It's buffet, and granted, I'm sure they just had a contract with the hotel for the food. It's not like it was anybody's fault. But we get up to the carving station it was turkey, and I was like, finally, here's my Golden Corral moment. And they're like, oh, we just ran out. Wait here, we'll get some more.
I was like, I'm waiting here. I have, this is my station. I will wait for another turkey to arrive.
We waited and waited. And finally I was like, this is awkward. I'm leaving and I'll come back when there's more turkey. I left, and the next time I looked over at it, the whole carving station had been taken away.
Yeah.
And there was
replaced
there was
cold
no more turkey.
wraps.
They were cold vegetable spring rolls. And just on a little plate on this big space where the carving station had been.
Yikes.
Yeah.
It was we didn't eat well. We
did not eat well.
No. Which probably I feel like brings us to Saturday, where one of the first things we did, Steve and Mike and I went to get lunch. And how long did we wait at said hotel restaurant to be served food?
I'd give it a solid 40 minutes. Did it feel like 40?
I think that's generous. I think it was maybe longer.
It could have
maybe
been
it just felt longer.
It
could have been an hour.
Yeah. They were not.
Oh, let's grab food before the Voyager panel because, that was like the big thing we wanted to do.
Right.
And the hotel was in kind of a food desert. part of town.
Right. There wasn't anything immediately nearby.
No, you would have to walk a few blocks or Uber. And we ate the hotel food, I don't know, every day at some point, not every meal, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was fine. The hotel bar, you could order the food there, and then it would come from a kitchen from somewhere else, which is probably the same kitchen that like the turkey station was cooked in. You know, they probably had one. They probably had to travel down an elevator and everything to get to us in the lobby. Yeah, but then Steve was there, and what did we wear? I was Wesley Crusher.
It was brilliantly, I might add. I don't know where you found that thing, but I was impressed.
Damian bought this cute Wesley Crusher stripe top, and I wore it
Like
with
the
rainbow
late
pride
season
pin.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you guys.
Yes, we were Captain Shaw and Seven, so we had our.
One of us put more effort and money into it than the other one.
But listen,
we're not going to say who.
You had an excellent red.
Yes.
No, you looked great. But Steve had a sort of an unfortunate gatekeeper moment with the HR admiral, right? What did he say to you?
Yeah. He commented on my pips, my droopy pips, which, okay, so my cosplaying was very much like my childhood Halloween costume construction. Like you get like a component that was legit. Like say like for multiple Halloweens, I was definitely a vampire because I had a cape. And the cape was like my thing.
That's all you need.
Then I had to like MacGyver the rest of the costume around this central component.
Yes.
Similar, like, so I found the tunic. Thank you, Damian. You told me where to find the tunic. So I had the authentic Picard season 3 Starfleet tunic, but then like I definitely like fudged my pants, my turtleneck. I found these like sad little pips. I found the pips at the last minute, and they weren't the ones I wanted to get, but they were the only ones that could Amazon Prime to me in a day.
Yeah.
And they were metal. They had the really bad clasps they only lasted like one clasp, and then they like just died.
It's gonna chafe against your neck a little bit, probably, right?
I had like a Band-Aid behind it, so it wouldn't.
Oh.
That's
where that Band-Aid came from.
And they were just weighing like my turtleneck down. So I just had these sad droopy pips, which the HR admiral definitely commented on.
Yeah, it was like I actually was like, dude, like it a little bit reminded me, Mike, of the video that you showed us of the HR lady at the Star Wars con where she's like writing people citations, right?
Yes.
But those
were funny, like character-based citations.
No, this guy was just like he like scolded you about your pips, and I was like, and I literally turned to him, I was like, what are you, HR? And he's like, well, I guess I am.
I think he was trying. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think he was trying to flirt.
Okay.
He was still workshopping. He hadn't perfected.
He's like, well, clearly he wanted to
fuck. Clearly, the pips were just an entryway to me.
That he was going through a pickup artist ritual.
Exactly.
Right, because you're supposed to like kind of insult them, and then like it's disgusting. Anyway, not to get too far down that road. We started the day. I think this is the first thing we did was the Robin Curtis panel, right?
Robin Curtis read from her book that was called Letters from My Mother, and her mother wrote her all these super long letters that she turned into a book. And then one of them was like to her ex-boyfriend to thank him for he had gifted them like a shower massager in the early 80s. And it was like, oh yeah, no, you can see where this is going. Like her mother was like made all sorts of like really dirty shower massage jokes, but like it was very funny. It was good. And then we sort of
woman talking about her mother masturbating in the shower in the 80s. This was the comedy that we were having at 9 a.m. Okay.
It was
wholesome.
And at some point we definitely were in an elevator with Robin Curtis, and
crowded elevator,
and the elevator like tag button, like you had to tag your floor, you had to like
scan your ticket,
use the fob or
key,
whatever to like hit your button, and it was like very finicky, and the doors closed fast.
Yeah.
And she was standing like in the middle, like right in the front, like where the doors close. And these people missed their floor, right?
The doors open and close, and they missed their floor
and
because
she's
she
just
was like,
standing
"Oh
there
wait,
blocking
where
the
do
door.
I scan?"
She's confused and like, and then it was our floor, and she did the same thing, and we almost missed our floor.
Damian got out. He was like, "Blue," and
I
I was
got
like,
out, and Mike is like, "Get out of the way, Rob Curtis."
I did not say that out loud.
You did
But
after we got out of the elevator,
after
but
the,
it
yes,
was
I didn't say that to her.
so.
Well, she wouldn't
Tagline
know.
for the show.
She's,
that?
I mean,
I said she wasn't no Kirstie Alley.
she was no Kirstie Alley.
Oh,
I have to say, Robin
Yes.
Curtis
She
was
was the
very
other
sweet.
side.
She's a very sweet person.
she was
Um,
lovely.
It was
yeah.
just a very funny
It
moment
was
where,
very
like,
funny.
you know,
She'd never been
we
on an
also-
elevator before.
And I'm never gonna ever see
Not
her
with a
again
D-list
without
celebrity.
thinking of Mike going, "Get out of the way, Rob!
Get out of the way, Robin Curtis." We also rode the elevator with Bob Picardo, Robert Picardo, who played the Doctor on Voyager, and that was after the awards gala, which he had gotten 2 awards. They kind of it's a very standard nonprofit thing where you make up awards to give to people as an excuse for people to like buy tickets to a gala. So he got 2 awards. I mean, they were valid awards. I'm not saying they're not, but we know how this works. You know what I mean? So he had these 2 little boxes of awards, and people were like, "Oh, congratulations on your awards!" And he was like, "I know, I have 2 of them now, and nowhere to put them in my suitcase." And then he said he might make earrings out of them or just shove them down his shorts. He was hilarious. We got a one-man show in the elevator.
Love it. Why
I
did you
think-
ask him to be on the podcast? Listen, this was your opportunity to ask every single individual, like, "Hey, got a podcast. Would love for you to come on and talk."
I
about
know,
it."
and it's funny because we were like, Mike and I were like a little shy. Like we got better at it as the days went on, and Steve was very much nudging us because we had
Someone had to.
so
I
on
give
the
a pin to you were you were very gun shy. You had brought this huge bag of pins. All this
Yeah, we
stuff
had
from
little
doing.
little
yeah.
badge pins, and we had stickers to
I was
hand
asked,
out.
"Have we ever seen a smaller pin?" Because I did give a pin to the boss. He was like, "This is the smallest pin I've ever seen in my life.
I got bigger
Where,
ones. I'll bring you
where
some.
am I
I'll bring you
supposed to
bigger
put this?"
I'll bring you bigger ones.
And I gave him my sticker. He was like, "What is this?" I'm like, "It's my sticker. Take it."
Oh my gosh.
But the Kate Mulgrew moment was kind of a highlight. Like she came in and was
Yes.
she kind of took over when she got on stage. She was really she was not going to take direction from anyone. But
Yes.
but she was introduced by an amazing drag act. I don't
2
know,
drag queens.
Yeah, they did this like tribute to her career where they and it was 2 of them and they kept changing costumes. And they covered Ryan's Hope,
The
Mrs.
soap opera
Columbo,
show.
the soap opera show, Mrs. Columbo, her detective show. They covered Tea at 5, her play as Katharine Hepburn. And then they did multiple Janeways. Oh, and they did
Yes.
Orange is the New Black, of course.
Oh, of
Gotta
course.
do red. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they were great.
It was so good. And
I
Kate
didn't
was sitting in the
realize it
front
was
row
always-
laughing.
Yeah.
I didn't realize until the end that they were just doing quick changes. I thought that there were like that many drag queens.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
it was literally just 2 of them. And then when it ended, she got on stage and they were like gonna like walk off. And she like, "Bring in 2 more chairs." She gave her chair and then slid in another. And she interviewed the 2 of them about their drag careers.
I have a
Like,
theory. I think I
yeah.
told you. Well, my theory, I mean, she's been to so many conventions and she's such a pro. Like, I don't think she spends a moment thinking about it until she's actually up on stage.
Oh, yeah.
You
Like
know?
Yeah.
it just she's like, "Oh, no, they're staying."
Yeah, she doesn't prepare material. She doesn't have bits. She's like, "Oh, what a wonderful way to fill time. Drag queens, come here. Let me interview you." And she was amazing.
Was
Like,
it a good interview?
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
They were from the UK. One from Manchester, and the other one had relocated to the States somewhere.
Yeah,
Oklahoma.
one of them was in grad school in Oklahoma. Yeah, and we've
Yeah.
connected with both of them.
Oklahoma.
And yeah, Oklahoma getting a master's degree. Go figure. I mean,
Okay.
Later showed up. She showed up in the most brilliant Beverly Crusher outfit. With the, like full uniform, bedazzled with a smock. It was amazing.
And then the other one, Misty Chance, who is from Manchester. Immediately, because I posted a photo of it on Twitter, and then immediately connected to our Twitter, and I was like, "We want to have you on," and she's like, "When?" So we're gonna hear all about this act if we can get her on the pod. So
yes,
when we get her on the pod,
when we get it, yeah,
yes,
when.
Yes, and then the other highlight I think is maybe we got into a very long conversation in the side room with Garrett Wong, Harry Kim.
Yes,
really,
we sure did. Yeah, because
I didn't. How did that start?
Well, so he does the second best Kate Mulgrew impression that I've ever heard. I mean, really, I have to say that Mike is the best.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. But so and I was like, oh, because I've heard it on his podcast. I've heard him do it. And I was like, is he going to do it? And he did. And then because they were all up there for the Voyager panel, right? And then she leans in and she's like, who here thinks that Garrett's impression of me is good? And I was like, I'll lend my support to that. I was like, I hope he's going to do it, right? And then she like basically like in the very few of us who raised our hands, she kind of like intimidated us all into like
putting them down.
I was like, I'm just gonna like tiptoe quietly backwards out of this room. She is, you can tell she can be very intimidating when she wants to be.
Oh yeah.
So we sort of passed him in that room, and I was like, we kind of passed by, and I was like, hey, I just want you to know, like, I'm a big fan of your Kate impression. And I think that, and she totally intimidated me out of supporting you. So I just had to tell you that I think it's good.
Oh, it did, yeah.
Yeah. And then he like launched into all of these like stories I feel like we can't tell here because they're like personal stories about her like life and family, right?
Fair enough.
Yeah, it felt, I don't think it got inappropriate. I don't think.
No.
Right. But it was
in front of her.
Right, about how he's like, she just smokes. That's just a smoker's voice. And then he's like, she quit for like a year or two, and you can see it on the show that her voice gets better. And then she started back up, and it goes right back.
Yeah.
So, so that was fascinating. But we like talked to him because he talked about how he does like impressions and how it's gotten him in trouble. And then I talked to
him in trouble because they're so good?
Because he was in a cab with a Russian cab driver, right? And then he sort of involuntarily does it, right? So he was like doing his Russian accent back at the dude, right? And then
and the guy was like, "Why do you talk like this?"
Yeah, and he's like, and he answers him in Russian because he speaks Russian.
Yeah,
and like it's like that got him off the hook, but
I think he's just one of those people, like we know those actors who just have really good ears, and when they travel, when they go to another country, they, without even
thinking about it,
control themselves, they just slip into it, and then they realize about halfway through, oh, I'm probably insulting all of you, aren't I?
Yeah, and then I told him the story about how Colby did the same thing to his Jamaican nurse as like while he was like on anesthesia still getting out of surgery. He like did a Jamaican accent back as nurse, and I'm like, yeah, don't do that. But it was like he was only happy to hear me tell a story.
Yeah.
Right.
We were standing at he was at his autograph table, but there was no line or anything, because it was the end of the night. And we stood there and talked to him for, I don't know, like,
it was like
20 minutes. Yeah.
Wow.
And he told that story about the BB gun somehow. And like,
from a story from his childhood.
So you're telling me you had a moment?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a long enough moment that I was like, are we stuck here? Like, are we now? Are we now trapped? Garrett Wong, we have plans. Like, we have dinner plans.
We've got to go.
We'll be here all night.
Thanks for the stories. Bye-bye now.
Like, we have places to be.
We should have invited him to dinner.
Should have.
Well, and we have Steve to thank for getting us off property. We went to it, knowing the area better than us. We ended up at the dim sum place.
Oh my God. I haven't had good soup dumplings in years. They were so good.
So good.
what before we leave, before we get off property, what else? We got to see a clip of the Voyager documentary, To the Journey, that
Yes.
has been crowdfunded and is coming out next year. It looks amazing. Um, the Voyager panel got really political,
Yes.
and in like
Uncomfortably political.
almost.
Okay.
I mean, it's an election year, so there was a lot of that,
Everything's
like,
uncomfortable.
get out and vote, and uh, I think it was a safe bet that all of the, Hollywood actors on stage are on the left, and they're at a D&I convention
Yeah,
hosted by
seriously.
Gays in Space. Like, everyone in the room is, to one side of the aisle, um, but still, I was like, there could be somebody in this audience that is who, you know what I mean,
Yes.
who could be
It's
like,
different.
boo,
Yeah.
Right.
Um,
No. And it was the other thing that was interesting to me is she says, someone made a comment about a family relationship where they don't talk politics so that they can keep the peace.
yeah.
And she was like, how many of you have relationships like that? And of course, we all have, someone in
Ah.
our life that we know not to talk that. You were talking about avoiding the stagehands, Lenita, about like, people who, you're not trying to start something,
Nope.
Right.
And she was like kind of giving shit to people for keeping the peace. Really, she was like, you need to either like fight to change that person, or you need to cut that person out of your life. And then this one person was like, but I promised my dead mother that I would look after my blah blah blah. It was like,
It got a little like, I mean, she was basically saying, how much of yourself are you sacrificing in order to keep this like sometimes you have to cut the tie to protect yourself.
Understood.
But yeah, it was like, at what Star Trek convention are you going to have that conversation with Kate Mulgrew? Like, this woman's in tears talking about her brother she can't talk to, and she promised her mom, like, it was very powerful, I thought.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, she was
And then
really great at, I'm sorry. She
No,
really
go.
We talked about this after. So that was the Voyager panel, which I was still getting into Philly, so I missed it. But then for her solo panel, she was just really, really skilled, and you can tell she's done this a lot, but very personal and very, very good at connecting with people. Like, there were definitely some people in the audience who asked her questions who were going through some stuff, and she was very empathetic. Knew when to engage, but also how to keep things moving, because you didn't want to get too much into their personal lives.
Right.
She's just really, really skilled at working that kind of crowd.
Yeah, she knew how to take a question, make the person feel seen and heard, and answer, but then also talk about what she wanted to talk about. You know what I mean? Without dismissing them. Because there's a I think it's in the Trekkies documentary. James Doohan, who played Scotty, tells this story about this woman who came up to him, and she looked very depressed, and she told him that she had attempted suicide, and and he was like, well, like, I'm doing a convention next week in this neighboring town, like, I want to see you there. And like, he kept like doing that, and she kept showing up for him, and like later she wrote him a letter that he saved her life. So it's like those kinds of connections that are possible at these events.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And then we went to the Roddenberry's concert that night.
Yes, and we had dinner with Steve, and he walked us to the concert and did not walk in because he had to go. But
he had a little dog to take care of.
Of course, yes, we all have responsibilities. It was so fun. That concert was like, I had such a great time. Yeah, and it was like, I had my shirt that says "Shaka when the walls fell." That anytime I wear it out in the world, everyone is like, "What the hell does that mean?"
Like, what?
and then and it was like, and there like easily 20 people were like, "Oh my god, I love that shirt! Oh my god, you got that? Where'd you get that?" It was.
You felt seen. You were with your people.
Absolutely.
And my favorite part about there's the Riker drag king moment, which was
It was Beth.
Beth, the lead singer of the Roddenberries. It was amazing. And she did like the Riker maneuver, like the one leg up over the chair. And it was fucking amazing. It was so good. And she was covering Prince, but all of the lyrics were changed so that it was like Riker is a baller, is essentially, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
yeah.
it was,
Most of their music was popular songs with changed lyrics, like Spock Lobster instead of Rock Lobster, which sounds dumb, but like it was hilarious. And they had like props and they had like go-go dancers and like they knew what they were doing. They weren't taking it too seriously.
they had a horn
Like,
section.
they had a horn section. Like the musically, they were like banger. Like they were
They had a
very
hype
talented
man who
people.
was like in all sorts of wild alien costumes. Like he was like he did like came out as Quark.
Right.
Um,
He was a Cardassian at one point.
Oh, that was that picture. I was like, I was looking at some of the I don't know where did y'all post? I don't know. I saw someone who looked like they were Cardassian on stage.
That
I
was
like,
him.
I was like, that's cool and a lot of work.
Yeah.
Tim Russ did like 2 songs with them. Robert Picardo did 2 songs with them.
Mm-hmm.
Bonnie Gordon, who is just like a fucking hysterical convention celebrity really now, right? I mean, like if there's more Prodigy, I'm sure she'll be on it. But like she's funny as hell.
I mean, you lost a bet to her in the elevator and had to buy her.
I did. I forgot that. I have to buy her. I bought her.
Yeah. Wait. Full story, please.
I don't even remember what the bet was. It was like who's going to be at the bar. And
yeah, it was who's going to be at the bar, and there was this. Oh gosh, what was her name? She was from Farscape, I think. But her bet was that this other actress, yes, that was going to be at the bar. Like, oh, I wonder. Well, $20 says she's going to be at the bar, and we didn't take the bet. But still, she was there, and she was like, "All right, pay up." And Damian bought her a drink. It was really fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, she was just very down to earth and a nerd. You could tell an honest nerd. Like she's thrilled that she's on this show. That hopefully.
But she does like all the events. She's going to be at the one in Long Island at the end of the month, and like, it's. But Steve, you would have been proud. By Sunday, Mike and I were giving our cards to anyone who asked.
Everybody was getting a sticker. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
The only we didn't mention you. I think you had a connection with her earlier in the day or the day prior, but towards the end of the day on Saturday, before the Garrett Wong situation, I'm gonna forget their last name. Jin.
Oh, Jin Maley. Yeah. So we connected with Jin again because Jin really, we saw Jin like every day of the convention, and they were very determined to remember our names.
Yeah.
So I was like,
fun.
So I was like, so this is what I do. Like on the first day of a job, we do the name game where you go around and you tell a story about life with your name. Like people always mispronounce my name or always misspell it or I'm named after this, or like literally any factoid related to your name.
Right. I'm not the rapper Mike Jones. Yeah.
and now for the first time, I'm like encountering people who don't know the Omen, so the Omen doesn't really work for me anymore. So
well, they also they were a bit young for it. They did not get the reference at all.
Yeah. That remake wasn't huge, big enough to keep it in the zeitgeist.
You've aged out of your icebreaker, Damian. Sorry. You were with your people, but they were too young to be your people.
Yeah.
We were.
I'm sorry. Did you speak earlier in the day with Tavine, or did we miss her entirely?
Yes, we did. We did talk to Tavine. Like with Stephanie Zhikowski.
Yeah. They would be great here.
They were. They were. Both of them were very sort of present and approachable. And Stephanie, we saw at the gala, had this like scorching hot green pantsuit, very sexy. They were very, very cool. And I think we all follow each other on either Twitter or Instagram, though haven't been able to find Jen. But yeah.
Well, they might be smart enough to not be on social media.
Yeah, props to that.
I do want to say, like you mentioned, so we talked about the kind of flirtiness of some of the people. And I want to confess I learned a lot on Saturday. It was a very nice realization. I think I went in with totally the wrong expectations when I heard gays in space. In my very like cis male white gay in his 40s, I absolutely went in thinking it would be Fire Island in Starfleet uniforms.
Yeah.
It was not. And it was such a lovely, lovely surprise getting to connect with the crowd that was there and seeing how diverse a room it was.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it was really, and I mentioned this to Lanita at work. Like I have never been like I am loath to show up at a party alone, even when it's like all people that I know. Do you know what I
Mm,
mean? And
me
I don't think
too.
I've ever, and so I was like still awake and going after the Roddenberry's concert, and there was an after
Oh,
party in the hotel,
yeah. And I was
and Mike
like
was like,
already in
"I'm not
bed.
going," and I was like,
Like, I'm tired.
I'm
Touch my
still happening,
bedtime.
still happening,
Like,
still
I'm
feeling
an
it.
old man.
And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go on my own. And it was a space where I felt totally comfortable being like a solo person walking into a party full of strangers and
It
seeing
was
what
in a
happened.
hotel suite.
It was in a hotel suite. And I ended up, and it was like 2 a.m. and I'm getting yelled at by like this 80-year-old woman and her son about Discovery. I was like,
Were
this
His
you
is
on the
crazy.
wrong side of the
passionate
conversation?
No,
thoughts.
it was like, sometimes people want to have an argument, and I'm like, I'm actually not disagreeing with you, but you're gonna yell at me. And
Okay.
there's alcohol involved, clearly, and
Yeah.
yeah.
It was
Passive
funny. We
flesh
saw
alcoholic
that
is
guy. I
something.
didn't see his mom. Maybe she slept in, but we saw him the next morning, and we were like, "Oh, hey!" And he was like, "Hey, sorry if I don't remember any of our conversations." He just like led with that. Like,
Yeah, it was wild.
fine.
And then one guy who in his definitely some kind of Star Trek underwear outfit accused me of being on steroids. That was a moment. Yeah,
Oh,
that
I wish I
happened
could
at
have
the
been
end
that. Have
there.
been like, he's not. He just
Mm-mm.
lifting is his cardio. So that's all.
Oh my
But
God.
yeah,
Well,
it was a very late after party, and
You had a great time.
we had a great time.
yeah.
We had a great
See,
Speaking
time.
lesson
of
learned, Damien. You can walk into any
Jamaharon
space.
for the after party.
Jamaharon,
Jamaharon, yes. Apparently, Jamaharon is getting yelled at by a dude and his mom in the middle of the night about a Star Trek.
That's awesome.
Go figure. We had it all wrong. We thought it was much more exciting.
speaking of the expectations, I said earlier, Steve, I said something similar about how there's two kinds of gay events. There's activism events and then orgies. Like and you kind of expect one or the other, and sometimes they blend. But there was, I do want to address this a little. There was some controversy a week before the convention,
It's a
maybe two
couple of weeks,
weeks.
yeah.
Yeah, we had already bought our tickets, and then you know uh Kate Mulger actually talked about a little bit about this, about how we're in like cancel culture and how that can be really dangerous. And we don't really just listen to each other and stuff. So something was posted on the Gaze in Space Instagram
Okay.
with some accusatory complaints about Dan Devey being uh
Abusive.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like
abusive.
an
Yeah,
abusive
yeah,
boss, kind of.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what it
Basically,
felt
yeah,
like.
being like a bad boss to like, um, and it makes me
And
think
they
of
had
like the
like quoted testimonials for like people that were associated with the company and like
yeah,
named names and
yeah. It made me think of like the Ellen controversy,
yeah.
which was kind of similar. Like, you know,
That she was a
I
horrible person and yelled at people
yeah,
and very nice to the public, but terrible to the people that worked with her.
right. And so I don't know the other side of the story. I'm willing to give Mr. DV the benefit of the doubt. But going in, we were like, should we be going to this? Like, are
Yeah.
Yeah.
are are the celebrities going to pull out because of this controversy? Is it going to be an uncomfortable weekend? And none of that. Like, I really didn't feel any of that while we were there. I didn't meet him. I didn't interact with him. I saw him,
He was kind
but
of omnipresent throughout. He was there for
he
kind of
was,
everything.
yeah.
He kept appearing. Yeah.
And part of it is, we there are people with big personalities that rub people the wrong way, um, and I don't have a horse in that race. You know what I mean?
No.
I don't. I don't have an opinion. But I was really relieved that we got there and there was like nobody protesting outside or anything. You know what I mean?
Good.
My boss was mean to me. My boss was mean to me.
Yeah. So then
Come on, any final thought?
Yeah.
Anything, okay, how about this? Anything that you wanted to happen that didn't?
I wanted to be dressed as well as Damian and Mike Jones. My cosplay was cracking.
No, it was
Well, if I would have joined you, we would have been together. I would have been walking around like an extra, as like in my stagehand blacks, like, what up, y'all?
But listen, I feel like the cosplay was like, it ran the gamut of like people who like had good stuff and people who were like sort of janky looking, and like it was
homemade stuff and
it totally didn't
spent way too much money
totally
on.
Didn't matter. Yeah.
And it was really, in our little group, it was really Damian, because I brought one outfit, like for one cosplay outfit, and that was the red. And then, you know, I think he got so carried away buying things that he bought me that Wesley Crusher thing, a top, you know, and luckily I brought the perfect gray pants to wear with it, like by accident. So on Sunday before we left, we did go to 2 panels: the Why Diversity Matters panel, which was interesting, and Women of Sci-Fi.
Yes.
And that one was very disorganized but fun. Yeah, it was good. And then we went home.
And then there was like a little come down from it where you're like,
yes.
And re-entry now.
Yes. And we've connected with some of these people that we met, some of the, you know, friends, artists over Twitter and Instagram. And yeah, I hope we can get some folks on the pod. Yeah.
I think we will.
Excuse me. Hold one moment. I'm currently scrolling the Instagram hailing frequencies open IG. I'm confused as to why there aren't 4 little folks that were delivered with my tribble. There's a Picard, a Riker, a Troy, and a Geordi watching out of a window. Why was it not mentioned that, hey, these can possibly be purchased? Would you perhaps maybe want some?
Oh, the action figure dude was one of the cooler things I saw there. The guy who like did custom
with the custom action figures.
Playmates, yeah. Are they Playmate? Is that what they were?
Playmates,
yeah.
Well, he did everything. And then there was like a more of a vintage booth that had like still in the box Playmates toys. So yeah, I ended up buying. So those four figures were looking out the window sad because they were waiting for the rest of them. I bought 6 total.
Steve, did you buy anything?
No, I should have. I don't know why I didn't. I should have bought the Pez collection.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
The Pez collection that's now a coat rack in my apartment. Yeah.
Well, you inspired me.
Right, yours, yeah.
I didn't know if the husband wanted any additional merch.
So doesn't matter. You're there, you get to buy it, and you come home and look what I have now for the house.
Yeah, I was talking to the guys about this on Saturday. Like, I remember going to conventions as a kid, and it was in the 80s and 90s, and there was just a different mentality about collectibles in general, and the way things would appreciate in value, which they didn't.
Right.
And I think we're just finding that like trends change over time. Like,
absolutely.
My mother spent her life, you know, acquiring this collection of all these figurines, thinking it would be like our inheritance one day. And you
yes,
you can even give them away on eBay now.
Correct.
Right.
So the collectible market in general is just not what it used to be.
But my mother-in-law has a huge bin of I almost said Teletubbies, of Beanie Babies. So many Beanie Babies.
Oh my God.
Like,
but
people
do they still
thought
have
that
the tags on?
They still have the tags.
On? Are they?
They're still not worth anything.
No.
Well, some of them are. Some of them are. Very rarely.
The Princess Diana, Candle in the Wind tribute Purple Bear. If it's in pristine, but do they have?
She knows her shit.
No, I only know this because for some reason it came across my timeline. And
There's
I
a
was like,
documentary. There's like a whole
yeah,
DVD.
but you have to, if it has to have the tag, but it has to be the tag in the plastic. Like it's a whole
Perfectly preserved.
Correct. Perfectly preserved. And I
But I
understand.
remember like, oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're
I remember
good.
going and looking for these things. Like we were talking about the Galoob versus the Playmates toys. And I remember when the Galoob ones first rolled out, it was like season 1 or season 2 of the Next Generation. They were the first ones to get the license. And there were all these production mishaps. And like you couldn't find a yard to save your life. And when you
Why
did
would
find
you want to? Boo. Dip it in tar.
oh my God, then we found one. There was a toy at one of the merch booths. There was a figurine stuck in tar. It was
and you all did not.
It wasn't for sale. It wasn't for sale. Are you kidding me? We would have bought it.
Oh my.
And
yes,
actually,
Steve. Yes, Steve, that is me. I am.
Actually, Steve brought up a really good point while we were waiting an hour for our lunch about how he's like, what is it about gay men who are, how old are we? 40 something, right? We're
early
around
40s.
45, right? Okay. Who were like watching Next Generation when it first came out and like first airing, and were gutted by the death of Tasha Yar and somehow identified with her, even though as an adult we can look back and agree with Lanita that she was a shit character, that they handled her poorly. Denise Crosby rocks, she was amazing, but like they didn't give her good stuff.
Yeah.
And yet somehow there was something about her that gay men of a certain age have identified with deeply.
Y'all love Tasha Yar.
And we're scarred by her death, et cetera, et cetera.
I celebrate. Steve, if you have listened, you know my feelings about Tasha Yar and how she is terrible. She's a terrible human.
Well, had you
not what she deserved.
Had you been at this particular merch counter, you could have easily scooped up one of the Yar figurines for like $5, who I would have happily shelled out $100 for in 1980 if I had found one, because they couldn't find them. But now, like, you can't give them away. So yeah, it was little childhood Steve was just kind of so sad seeing all these things, seeing all these toys that he was just aching to play with and could never find. And now they were just like, they had the freckle face production mishap data that I remember being a thing. There was also like
missed that one.
There was a lot of trouble with the Galoob line. And then all the random figures that I would have loved to have had when I was 10, 11, 12.
Yeah, collectibles seem to be the thing. Like I think about my mother and the fact that she like would get on these kicks of like porcelain dolls. And then not porcelain, what's the other? Vinyl? They were like the softer ones. I can't remember, like they were not plastic though. And they were like beautiful. And then she got into Daddy Longlegs and has an entire cabinet full of them. And it's what
isn't that a spider?
It is. However, it's the name of these figurines. They're black figurines. Like that's the thing we always collected. Like so. Like my childhood, like when we were collecting things, we'd go to like JCPenney's or Sears, and they would have all the porcelain dolls up, and we would look, and she would like, let's find the one that looks like us, and there would only be like one, and she would go, now isn't she beautiful? Don't you think we should bring her home with us? And like we take it home and we put it. It was like a whole thing, like build up my self-esteem and being like, it may be the only one, but guess what? It's gorgeous. You're gorgeous. We're gonna take it home, right? Wow. These Daddy Longlegs are wood carved dolls, and their arms and their legs are long, like longer in proportion. They're very lanky, depicting different parts of the Black experience. Like there's a church lady and her hat, and the preacher and her husband, and the kids playing outside. They're gorgeous, and like they're the things that I will not like sell. Like porcelain dolls, bingo. Vinyl dolls, goodbye. But the Daddy Longlegs will stay forever.
And that's sorry.
No, go ahead, Steve.
I was just saying, and that really, like, if it means something to you, that's the value. Like, many porcelain figurines. My mother has all these. I don't know if you know the Yadro. It's a Spanish line.
Oh, listen, she's got those too. When I was in Spain, I literally brought her one from. We went to Yadro, the actual store. I brought her one back. She's got that. Thomas Blackshear. We did Swarovski crystal figurines for like 6 years. It was like. oh, you want the lion? Great, here it is. Here's the peacock. Like,
and you would spend your life collecting them,
Correct.
thinking that you were going to sell them for thousands and thousands of
Right.
dollars.
Correct. No.
Right. Like Hummel figures, the little well, and now, I mean, I think that the modern was, I just saw this online. Someone said that Funko Pops are like the Hummels of our generation. But because I have so many Funko Pops, but you know, I don't think these things are going up in value or anything. I also take everything out of the box. So like those 6 or characters that I bought, I immediately freed them from their plastic prisons.
You freed them from their value as well.
Right.
Whatever that was.
Which is fine. So the figures I bought is super nerdy. They were from Star Trek Generations. And when they started to film Generations, they had designed new uniforms. They filmed with them for like 2 days and then cut them. But the toys had already been designed. So these toys have uniforms that were never filmed, that were never like in the movie. That's why I wanted them.
That brings you the joy.
That brings me the joy.
You're like, these are never on screen, but guess what? They exist in the world.
Yes, exactly.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Listen, the Funko Pops, I enjoy. They're still in their plastic prisons. I don't expect them to grow in value, but I do that because I don't want the dictator to think, oh, let me go ahead and take like Dobby and have him be eaten by the hyenas. No, sir. They stay up.
One running around here.
Yeah, they're upstairs. Like I keep buying them. And I made the +1 a Funko Pop, like a make your own, like design it to look like you. Yes.
Yes.
A little Gorn Funko Pop. There was a Gorn plushie at the concert, like dancing on the dance floor.
Like a furry.
Furry, not plushie, furry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
mean, that's a whole that's a whole other level of interest. Like, aren't you hot? I mean, it seems hot.
Oh God, there's no way I could dance in one of those costumes.
Did you happen to see the Borg Queen with the full suit with like the big old fake titties?
No,
like the big drag queen tits.
Where was that? Where
at the fucking? I think at the after party. But I was like, where else did you wear that? You didn't just put it on for this hotel party with like 15 people? Like,
you never know.
She was wherever the Klingon woman. She was with the Klingon woman at the party we didn't get invited to.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I just thought that, sometimes I feel like maybe a convention, maybe this is too much, but like if you're gonna do like a buffet or something, like you have like regular food, but then it would be fun to have like thematic food, right? Like you're having gawk, you make it. You're having, I don't know, like Andorian ale, like just stupid stuff that would just bring a smile to your face and be like, yeah, just that little extra razzle dazzle.
That would be the extra mile. If you want to hear more about Star Trek food, go back and listen to our episode about Star Trek food. I mean, clearly the food was just like whatever the hotel agreed to do.
Of course.
No, the hotel was kind of a mess also. So it's all good.
The room was nice. Good. I had no problems. I mean, it was a nice hotel.
Yeah.
They just weren't, I think, prepared to have that many soccer kids and nerds. And there was a debate club there too, some debate event.
Oh, even more nerds. Okay.
I know, nerds on top of nerds. But not as much as I thought might have happened.
Expected when I first saw Gays in Space.
Oh, full circle moment. I love it. I'm hoping, do we think that this will continue and that it's going to happen next year?
Yeah, in fact, it's the first week of May next year, we think.
Yeah,
something like that.
They announced first weekend of May. Yeah,
that's great. It doesn't conflict with me, so I will mark that down. Listen, I leave on Saturday. Listen, I would have come, but I had to get my hair done because I leave on Saturday to go hang out with my line sisters, and that was very important. So I live vicariously through you gents out in D&I Con. I can't wait to go next year. I have a whole year to prep all my looks. It's 4 days. I'll take off from work.
Yeah. Well, put in the PTO now.
Absolutely. Like, I'll just put it on his calendar. This is when we roll around next year. I won't be here.
Yes.
I'm gonna go do my nerd shit.
It's funny. I had never been to the Vegas convention, which is like the big one. But like I said, a lot of it ends up on YouTube. So I feel like, like, oh, I don't really need to go. I can like watch all the panels, and things like that. But some of them don't end up on YouTube. But going to this one, I realized the real reason to go is connecting with other fans. And,
It's true.
and, there really is a sense of community that made me really lit my fire about the podcast. Like, I feel like if we, get some guests on and stuff, we can actually be a bigger part of that community. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah. And people were excited to hear about our little frivolous podcast.
Yeah.
So
frivolous. We are adding to the zeitgeist of Star Trek in the best way, because we are not very precious. However, you can Google some things sometimes. And then we have Mike, our historian, and Damian, our trivia buff. And we have great special guests. Hello, Steve. And you let me come on as just a fan who makes you tell me who people are, because I don't know their real names. And then we get Erin Hadley, who comes in, who's like, I haven't watched it, but I'm going to tell you all about it. And then Ben pops in.
She's like the smart one
from Colorado and goes, hey, yeah, I got to go. It's my birthday party. Then we go, thanks for coming. And it's great.
Oh, Ben. Sorry, you derailed me for some reason. I don't know why.
Because it's what I do.
We're excited about community. Is what you said.
You're filling a role. So yeah, any final thoughts about the convention? Do you see us going to more going to this one again next year? I think could happen for sure. But like the Long Island convention that's coming up, or saving up and doing Vegas, saving up and doing
I mean,
cruise.
the fact of the matter is expensive.
It's expensive.
It's expensive. And but it is, and it's kind of exhausting, but it's a lot of fun. And I feel like we and we'll see if these connections blossom and stuff, but I feel like we made new friends, and and the next time we go, we won't be a newbie.
Right. Absolutely.
So
yeah. There were definitely things we would do differently.
We'll have better swag. Yes.
Better swag.
And better costumes.
Yeah.
Elevated costumes.
Elevated.
Just elevated. No
more saggy pips.
The pips were fine. It was the
our pips are always erect.
It's just the turtleneck. A lot of the costumes I avoid because they're hot. Like, I don't want to wear anything that has a turtleneck.
Correct.
Come summertime in Las Vegas, I don't know how people are wear the Picard era one. I was like, oh, luckily it was kind of chilly.
Scants for Vegas.
Scants all the way.
Yep.
That's amazing.
I'm in.
All right. Well, I want to thank Steve for joining us today, and for joining us.
Yes. I'm glad that you were an excellent Captain Shaw, even with your saggy pips.
Oh.
And I want to thank you all for listening. If you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure to leave us a 5-star review where you get your podcast, and you can find us pretty much everywhere at Hailing Freak Open, including YouTube. We just added YouTube as a thing. So you can listen to the audio podcast on YouTube with a still image now.
I was going to say, we've got to prepare ourselves if we're venturing into being on screen. I can't have my fuzzy brown blanket to keep me warm in my basement. Like your background is cool. Even Steve's background is cool. It's got we're superheroes, gay superheroes.
Is that you as a superhero?
That's him and his husband.
Yes.
Oh my God.
It's the first thing I noticed. I love it.
Of course it is.
Damian's got, a nice Victorian-esque mirror, and I'm like, here's my cinder block purple walls. So let's be prepared.
It's like you're at the Van Wezel. Inside joke. All right. I guess with that, I will say hailing frequencies closed. Thanks, guys. Bye.
No goodbyes. Just good memories. Hailing frequencies closed, sir.